march that occurred, and this was a significant march in Birmingham. It's also known as the Children's March because so many children. Is there anyone in here who may have participated in that Children's March back in 1963?
Right here.
All right, thank you, good, thank you. Let me tell you one thing and give you this example. Dr. King went to Jackson Olin High School in Ensley. Anyone from Jackson Olin here? Dr. King stood out on the sidewalk. He didn't have to go on the inside. But when he stood on the sidewalk, all of the students started, Dr. King, Dr. King. And those students came out of the school, went down to 16th Street Baptist Church. He emptied the school just from the influence of his being on the sidewalk. Influence, influence. Now, I would just challenge each one of you, you're in school, daily, by your style of living, try to have some influence and let your influence be positive. There was a man in the Bible known as Peter, and they said that when Peter would walk along the sidewalk, folks would bring sick people so that his shadow could pass over them. Influence. You want to have constructive, positive influence. But there's some things you got to do in order to have that. And number one, let your word be your bond. All right? So here's the march. Let me describe this march to you. 16th Street Baptist Church was filled to capacity. We was at Zion Hill Baptist Church, 1 block below. Dr. King, Fred Sheldrake, Ralph Abernathy, Abraham Woods, they were on the telephone conversing with President John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert Kennedy, who was the Attorney General at that time. President Kennedy was trying to persuade Dr. King to call the marches off because of the adverse publicity of police dogs being sicked on innocent children, marches, folks who are just asking for a basic right, high-powered hoses, knocking people down, just asking for the right to vote. And Andrew Young, who later became ambassador to the United Nations, was there. There was a young lady named Dorothy Cotton, who was a close lieutenant of Dr. King. They were leading us in singing freedom songs. And about 1 p.m., Dr. King came in and announced that we would march. And we were all happy because we had our marching shoes on. And we started that march, and this is it, Dr. King. Right behind Dr. King, there was an instructor from Myers College named Nathaniel Lindsay. Reverend Nathaniel Lindsay taught religion. He was a CME minister. And to the right of him, one of the white professors at Myers College, that was Dr. Ralph Galt, who was in, and we thank God for our white brothers and sisters and for the significant contributions that they made to the civil rights movement. Some of them died, you know that, Viola Luso, and others down in Selma, Alabama. And there was the pastor of the Myers Chapel CME Church, James Ezekiel Robinson, was in this march. And there was a Baptist pastor from Fairfield, the Reverend John A. Salary, was in this march, and there's me standing right there. Now at the end of the march, we marched about 5 blocks, and then a Birmingham policeman wheeled his motorcycle in front of Dr. King and said, "Halt, halt." And we had been instructed to fall down on our knees. But when you look at this picture here, you'll see me, I'm standing. And I remained standing because I wanted to see what would happen to our leaders. They loaded all of us up in paddy wagons and took us over to the jail on the south side. and we could hear the singing, freedom songs, before we got there. Because there were so many children, so many of our people already in jail. And when we got there and they booked us, they separated Dr. King from the rest of us. The significant thing that happened with me, I call it significant, when they took me to the cell, and with an elderly black man there. I recognized him because he was always at the movement meetings of the Alabama Christian movement. He was a disciple and a follower of Fred Shusway. His name was William Meadows. And I said to him, Brother Meadows, I said, you're too old to be on this cold, hard, concrete floor. And his remarks to me was, son, I said that I would go all the way because I wanted to see what the end would be like. And I said, my God, if he had lived a few more years, he would have seen Birmingham elect his first black mayor in Dr. Richard Atherton Jr. And then we could say we have come from Shoeshine Sam to the mayor of Birmingham. And if Brother Meadows had lived a few years longer, he would have seen Barack Obama being elected as president of the United States of America. Now that's where we are. And then we come at a time like this that we remember the dream, but we are surviving the nightmare. And that third part, we are looking at the fulfillment of the dream. I said, remembering the dream. You got the dream. Every worthwhile movement, every worthwhile project, it begins with somebody's dream. Things don't just happen downtown, skyscrapers. They start with somebody's dream. But dreaming can be a dangerous business. If you read your Bible, you find the story of Joseph, who shared his dreams with his brothers. And as a result, they put him in prison. Martin Luther King was the finest dreamer that the world has ever known. We know how he articulated his dreams at the Washington Monument. I have a dream that one day. But how did Bull Connor, how did the Lester Maddox, how did the White Citizens Councils and the Ku Klux react to the dream? They said, King, that will never happen. And they used fire hoses. And they used police dogs. Lester Maddox gave sticks to white customers over in Atlanta to keep the black customers out. Bombed churches at 16th Street. And finally, on April the 4th, 1968, is when they killed the dreamer. But what they didn't realize, you could kill the dreamer, but thank God you can't kill the dream.
All right.
And the dream still lives on. Fred Shusway, Abraham Woods, and you will continue. But I said, surviving the nightmare. Now, here's what I like for African Americans to remember right here. When I survived the nightmare, somebody asked, I said, yeah, that's some token things. We are glad to have mayors, council people, but what we got to look at is the masses of our people. We got a few folks living out in the suburbs. We got a few who got big $100,000+ salaries. But we got to look at the masses. Where are the masses? And we want to try to get ourselves in position to help the masses. And then we got to look at what crack cocaine is doing in the black community. We got to look at our cities. We got pimps and prostitutes lining the streets. in our cities. This is what I call the nightmare. When we start raping, we start robbing, and we start killing, that's the nightmare where we are. That's where we got to survive. And thank God for you. You're getting your education. When you get it, you go back so you can do as King did. King didn't use his education and training just for King, but to help somebody else. Now, you may have a question at this point before I say anything else. I'm going to open up to a question that you may have. Now, if there's no question, let me tell you about civil service examinations in Birmingham. We've not always had black policemen, black deputy sheriffs. You've not always had clerks, black clerks at the courthouse. Because the white state legislature passed a law that a black person could not even take the civil service exam to become a police patrolman, to become a clerk, to become a fireman. Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth and the Alabama Christian movement had to go to federal court, and they struck down that law. And then as a result of them striking down the law, blacks could take the examination. But you know what? They always claimed that blacks could not pass the examination. I went down, I passed the examination. They put my name on the list, eligible list. The Jefferson County Personnel Board has been eligible to be a policeman. My name stayed on the list. Finally, they sent me a letter, took my name off the list, and said that Negro failed to show up for an interview. I didn't show up because I never got a letter. So when they took it off, I went down the second time and passed it the second time. So this time they couldn't use the same line. Even the mayor of the city, George Siebers, an article in the paper said, Negro lies. And Mr. Siebers, Joe McPherson is not a lying man. I got my name on the list the second time. This time they couldn't use the same excuse. They sent me a letter, come down for an interview. Now, what time are we talking about? We're talking about the late 50s now. It's not like it is now. And at that time, blacks didn't even go on the third floor of City Hall. I remember one occasion where a black man was driving a police car, and he was taking the police car over to the maintenance department to be serviced. And one of the white citizens saw him, and she called the police department. There was a black man driving a police car, because she knew you ain't got no black policeman in Birmingham. But what's that black man doing driving a police car? Well, when they asked me to come down for an interview, I went up on the third floor of City Hall to be interviewed by Bull Connor. Bull Connor was the notorious police commissioner who hated black folks. One of my children, who was in the children's lodge, at McPherson, I heard him, Bull Connor, when he said he wished he could take all of the black children, put them in a sack, and I'll take them to the Alabama River and I'll drown them all. That was the kind of hate that the man had. I went up to be interviewed by, we call him Bull. And I like Fred Shuttlesworth, when he would come to our meetings, he kept us encouraged. He would always say, I'm going to dehorn the bull. And he did. That's why Shuttlesworth is such a great man, because he took those horns off the bull. Well, Bull asked me, McPherson, if we hired you as a policeman in Birmingham, would you arrest a white man? I looked him in his eyes, and I said to Mr. Carter, I would think that if you hire me as a policeman, my job is to enforce the ordinances and the laws of the city of Birmingham. And if a white man violated that ordinance and law, I would put him in jail. After that, they took my name off the list again. This time they claimed that I didn't live in Birmingham. Now here's what I want to say to students, but you got to be careful of now. When it comes to these qualifications of things, we dealing, you still got now a Tea Party mentality. What happened to all of those Ku Klux-minded folks? They didn't die off. They're still around. And they have gone into the Republican Party. White citizen councils and that kind of mentality. You've never known a president to be treated as this society has treated Barack Obama. We try to teach people to respect leadership and obey. And they have no respect whatsoever when it comes to leadership. Everything the man does, can't do nothing right. If Obama said to them, well, the sun will shine tomorrow, they're going to question that. But thank God for Barack Obama and a beautiful family. The man remains cool, calm, and collected. And we thank God for a great example. Beautiful wife, intelligent wife, beautiful children, intelligent children. And they can't find nothing on it, no kind of stamp or anything. And we just thank God and we pray for the young man that was contained. But now here's what you be careful about. The other folks, and I'll say your enemy, what they craft now is, they got something they call certified. If you ever see that word where you're looking at a position and you want it to become certified. I was teaching a class down in Thelma, and we started talking about certification, and there was a police chief there. And he pulled out his badge and he showed it to him. He said, certified chief. I had never known. Certified city councilman. Now this certification comes in when people want to try to restrict and block us. It's just a few other requirements that they're going to put on. If you want to be certified to do this or certified to do that, just put a few other requirements. Now, most of the time, many of us will be deterred by those extra requirements. Certified. And that's why it's done. So remember that. And as you get your education there, that you want to try to help others.
We have a question in the back.
Question, yes.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you so much for being here. Dr. McPherson, I was curious. You said that Nathan Hill Turner Jr. from the Birmingham News was the one that spoke to you about drafting your biography, but many people had spoke to you about it before. What made you go ahead and decide to work on the book and share your story with us?
On the what now, on the bus?
On your book, when the gentleman from the Birmingham News approached you and wanted to draft your biography, what made you go ahead and decide to share your story with us after this time?
You know, number one, because there are some significant things in this book that the public does not know. Now, one of them is the great contribution to the civil rights movement that was made by the Myers College administrators, faculty, staff, and students. The newspapers don't tell that story. of Myers College students. And those students, not only with the selective buying campaign that they led, but Myers College students were arrested over there at Memorial Park in Titusville for just peaceful demonstrations. Those Myers College students participated in that effort to desegregate buses in Birmingham. They were a part of that. And so I want that to be known in this particular book. And then I wanted to leave something for my grandchildren so that they will see what Grandpa was like and the kind of man that he was like. And one thing I got in here, my mama, coming out of Will College, she left us some writings, and I included this. And at the time that my mama wrote what's in this book, it was just before Clinton, when President Clinton was elected the first time. And I was blessed to go to Washington, to the White House, and meet President Clinton and shake his hand. And I had a copy of what I call my mama's book, and I gave it to him, President Clinton. And I incorporated that. And it tells the story, I think, of a typical African-American family coming up out of poverty in Alabama and the hardships that they faced. And there's one thing that's significant when my mama wrote this is how her mama, they're just coming up out of slavery, and the white man wanted to go to bed with her mama. Her mama was just 12 years old, and she just, I couldn't do this. And that 12-year-old girl left home, and she walked going up to Camden, Alabama, by herself at night. Finally, she saw a light, and she went to the house, and there was a black family there. And there was a lady, she didn't record her name, they just called her Big Mama. And Big Mama took her in, and Big Mama became her mama. I want that story to be told, because I think it was typical of so many African-American families and how they struggled. My daddy came to Birmingham, others went to Detroit, Chicago, Pensacola, but that story is in here.
Yes, sir.
Wow.